Welcome to today's training from Boomerang Give to Get. Today we will be unpacking your authentic self. All right, just having some fun here. So, welcome, friends, to our Give to Get, our boomers here for our conversation, our training around accessing your authentic self. And this is an interesting topic, isn't it? Because who are we? Who are you? Who am I? I don't know. Existentially speaking, who knows? But really, at the end of the day, the conversation is really around showing up as our authentic self. And we're going to run through this through a prism of a story. And when I say story, actually, it's going to be, if you recall, you may or may not have done some training with us before here, but we talked about the 3 pillars of transformation. And what were those 3 pillars? If you remember, the first pillar was state, right? Our emotional state, how we show up. The second is strategy, right? What are the strategies that we're implementing? Oftentimes those strategies are referring to how we are managing our emotions. And then last is our story. And this is where we're going to start diving into, because one of the things that we talked about in the in the other training was how we are the author, the writer, the director, the producer of our story. So we are actually designing, we are constructing, we are creating who we are. Our authenticity and our genuine presence is generated by us. Now, where that all comes from, or the different influencers and all of that, is one side of the story, but we're going to dive into another part of the story here. But let's unpack this a little bit, right? So what is a story? Now, this will all make sense in a moment when it comes to showing up as our authentic self here, right? But the definitions from the dictionary are these: an account of past events in someone's life or in the evolution of something, right? So an account of these past events in someone's life. Well, that someone is that self. Who is that self? Who are you in your story as you evolve? Another one is an account of imagery or real people and events told for entertainment. Now, how many of you have ever shared one of your own personal stories and someone told you how entertaining it was to hear your story, right? And they're like, oh, I love hanging out with you. You're so fun. You're so funny. You bring so much joy. You bring so much. And we all have those friends. And I'm sure if you are on this call or watching this now, you have been referred to as one of them, I am sure. And then the last bit around that is a piece of gossip or a rumor. And sadly, that does happen, right? We all have the water cooler conversations, or the worst here is a false statement or explanation, i.e. a lie. Now, we're not diving too deep in all of the story part around this, like how it shows up necessarily, but how we show up in it. So the philosophy here in this conversation is, if we're just going to have a conversation about you being your authentic self, we want to show up as a warrior or as a hero, right? Not as a worrier, not as a victim, because those are choices as well, by the way. I'm not suggesting that things don't happen out in the world and that we could have experienced some pain, some wrongdoings. But after the incident, what we do after that is going to determine, are we showing up as a warrior, as a hero, as a champion, or as a victim, as a worrier or a loser, right? But the truth is, we are all on our own hero's journey. And why is this important? Well, this is so we can write who we are. Now, remember, we started this conversation with that decision. We are writing, we are choosing how we show up, who we are as we show up. We are the architects of who we are. So this module here we're talking about is how we're going to look at all the different parts of this story, neurologically speaking. So what does that mean? Well, what we're going to do is look at the different levels of how we show up, neurologically speaking. How does it show up in these different parts of our story so that we can then have a powerful experience as we write it, as we show up? So let me just give you a little background. This is pulled from NLP. So some of you may already know I'm a master practitioner and trainer of neuro-linguistic programming. And what I found with story, with who we are, being ourselves, we have these multiple areas of these neurological levels that we can adjust, how we can write, how we can be even more present and be more authentic as we run through this philosophy. So Gregory Bateson was a British anthropologist who was very influential at the beginnings, like when NLP was first started with Richard Bandler and John Grinder. He was one of the OGs who were bringing in some interesting perspectives. See, he studied cybernetics and systems theory, and then he applied it to the psychology of human change. So if you remember, neuro-linguistic programming was modeled after that philosophy, that idea that our brain is like a computer. So he looked at this and said, okay, let's see how we can bring this in. So he thought of NLP as the first systematic approach to learning how to learn. And that's what we're doing. We're learning how to break free of whatever chains are holding us back from being ourselves. And he said this: a lack of systemic wisdom is always punished. So I'll give you a little code alert here. So really here, just to give you a high level of what cybernetics and system theory is, it's essentially the study of the same problem, right? The organization independent of the substrate in which it's embodied, right? So what does that mean? It's just being able to detach it a little bit and be able to look at it from different angles and notice the patterns. Right? What are the patterns in communication with ourselves and others, right? So really what we want to look at is how are we communicating our authentic self? How are we communicating recognition of others, right? How they're showing up, and then how can we model it? And that's what this all came into play is modeling the most successful. So again, this is the last bit of code, as it were, right? So when a person makes a change or transforms one area of their life, it affects their life on all the other levels. So what does that mean? Well, as we're transforming, as we're allowing our authentic self to come out, or we're wanting to bring that authentic self out, we have to remember that it impacts other areas, and for good or for bad. So the good news is that if there's a particular area that we can focus on, be more authentic in, it will transcend the other areas and will have a direct impact, right? So cybernetics is that one element of a system changes, all the other elements are as well. So I'm sure you've noticed this. Let's say you went on maybe a diet. Well, didn't that impact not only your body, but it also impacted how people saw you, how you showed up? Maybe you're starting to, build a business and you're making more money, and that part of your life is transforming. And then other people notice that differently, and it has a different impact. So we want to be aware of all of these changes so we're not blindsided and we can live into them. So what does that look like?
On a scale of 1 to 5, would you give yourself a 5 on achieving what you want in life? If your answer is anything less than a 5, right now, I have something awesome for you. Achieving your goals and living your life at a 5 isn't easy. Most people aren't prepared to focus, stay disciplined, and do the everyday work that is necessary to achieve amazing results. But since you're watching this, then I'm guessing that you're not one of those people. And this is an opportunity that will change your life. Give to Get is a global program that brings together world-class coaching and combines it with empowering masterminds and networking opportunities. We provide 5-star guidance for the price of a cup of coffee a day. To find out more, click on the link in the description of this coaching session.
Well, there's 7 neurological levels. So the first is our environment. right? And that is the where, the when, right? Our reactions and our constraints. So when you think about who we are, we also want to look at where and when we are that. Some of you might be, so like, we had this conversation earlier, Mauro, you were sharing, you have a different background and different clothes right there. So that is your environment. So we want to look at that because what's the old saying in, I think it was in the program, change people, places, and things, right? You change your place, you change your environment, it will have an impact on your life. Like lay with dogs, you're going to get fleas. So surround yourself with people who hold you to a higher standard. You will naturally live up to the expectations of that group. Then our behavior. So this is the what's. They're our actions or what we do, right? So by the way, these are all things we are aware of and can influence, right? We can influence our environment, where we go. We can influence what we do. Our capabilities. Now, this is our know-how. This is the how of things. So these are the strategies, our states, where we're headed, right? Our mental maps, and it's our blueprint and so forth. All right. Now, these are things we can develop, right? We can improve and work on. And again, this is part of finding that authentic self, because as we grow and live into what we're learning, what we're training on. And by the way, isn't that what being a boomer is all about, and give to get, and really growing ourselves, increasing our capabilities? This is how we essentially design who we are. Then it gets into beliefs, and these are the whys, and this goes into values, and we'll have another training on that. But really, this is where we give ourselves permission, or what is motivating us. And again, these are all different parts of who we are in our story. As we are moving through life, these are the different areas we can grow ourselves and be even more free to be who we are truly destined to be, which brings us to our identity. And that's our, the who am I, right? This is our sense of self and our relationship to others. Who are we? And these all influence who we are. The environment we are in are going to influence how we show up. It's going to influence our behavior. It's so interesting, to put a timestamp on this, and it doesn't matter what your beliefs are, but in this context is that in the schools, this is an environment. Right. And the conversation around, masking and CRT and all these things, the reason why there's so much conversation around that is because we know the environment is going to impact our behavior. It doesn't matter what side of the fence of this conversation you may or may not be on. The reason why anyone is on any side of that is because they understand, and their concern is about the influence on behavior. Will that limit capability? Will that limit? I'm a strong proponent of bringing children, challenging children, because they're capable of so much more than they think. We don't want to bring them down. We want to raise them up and challenge them to greatness. Right? Why? Because when they do that, when you and I challenge stretch ourselves, it then reinforces some beliefs about what's possible, what we're able to accomplish, right? Which will then reinforce our identity, who we are, right? And at the end of the day, that authentic being that we're striving for is all tied into all of this. So these are where we're looking at able to adjust and grow. Then we've got our mission, right? Our purpose through time. Now, the purpose of being, boomerang, being a boomer, of give to get, is to add value to each other in a multitude of ways. So the purpose behind this is growth, both personally and professionally. It's a brilliant opportunity, and we need to be fully self-expressed in this opportunity as we are sharing it, which then brings us to what I might argue the most important part is this seventh level. Spirit, Right? This goes beyond ourself. This is when we are connected to a larger community, like the community of boomers here, the higher self, and ultimately our higher power. And whatever language that is for you, it is vital that we recognize and include that in who we are. And for some people, that is where the most authenticity lies, is when we are able to express our connection to a higher power, whatever that is, and do it in a way that is congruent, is comfortable, and consistent, right? So we can align all of these and supercharge our experience to authenticity. So just for an example, we're looking at like how this can show up, how we can use this as a vehicle to fully express ourselves. And I'm just using alcohol as an example. All right. So from the hero's journey, essentially, the other thing is that it really is writing that story from slavery to freedom. Now, slavery, meaning being a slave to or chained to or caged by whatever limits we've put on ourselves or perceived limits others have put on us, which prevents us from being our authentic self. So using the environment, right? So that's the where and when and the constraints, right? So here's how someone would use the environment around alcohol. To say, I take a date to restaurants and coffee shops, not bars, right? That's just a way that someone would use the environment to be themselves, to be expressed. Okay, I'm not comfortable going to restaurants, bars, because if I'm not drinking, I want to be myself. So it makes it easier to do so at first. This is a way to do it. Remember, environment was the first of the scale, right? The first level. So if you were to, if you were to look at how you can create an environment that is going to get you to allow you to be your most authentic, you want to think about how is your current environment supporting you. Now, I'll give you a great example. Maro and I, we met in a mastermind because we consciously put ourselves in an environment that was going to be supportive of our growth, that was going to be supportive of taking our personal and professional lives to another level. And it's been such a blessing. So we always want to look at, is our environment supporting us? And if not, how isn't it? And then we need to then look at changing it. Now, if you need a little leverage on, and this is making sense to you, if you're picking up what I'm laying down, what will happen if you don't change your environment? Is your environment, will your current environment, if you don't change it, will it allow you to fully express yourself, or will it get in your way? Are you becoming the environment, the company that you keep, and it's not the kind of person that you want to be? Then you might want to look at changing it. And then what do you need to add, right? Is there something you need to add into it? Now, if you're part of this, of this program here as a boomer, maybe you need to add spending a little more time going through some of these trainings. Maybe you need to add bringing more people into the community so that we can raise the vibrations, as it were. And then what do you need to eliminate? Right, what do you need to eliminate from your environment? Are there people, are there places, are there things? So it's funny, like an environmental thing. I'm wanting to get even more healthy, have more energy and so forth. And the other day we had Heidi and I, we house sat at someone's house and got a bag of Oreos that were at that house and really eat them. And we were leaving. We were like, all right, that's it. We're making a commitment. We're, no processed food for the next, foreseeable future till we have an event coming up in October. Like, all right, so let's just do no processed foods for a couple of months. And then I said, well, did you bring home those Oreos? Because if they're in the house, that's going to be contaminating the environment a little bit. Now, it's not that we don't have the discipline to not eat them, but it helps if it's not there, if that makes sense. And I'm sure we've all done some friend house cleaning and that kind of thing. So just look at that in order to what's going to support us being our full authentic self. So then what we want to look at is what are 3 things you want to and can transform in your environment? Right? Just, think about it. Like, what could you do? Is it changing your environment as far as food, if diet is part of it? If it's finances, what do you need to add? Do you maybe need to create a vision board, or like Walter? I'm sure you've met Walter here, fellow coach here in the Boomerang Network here, where he talks about he's always got like wads of cash. Like, it's fake. You have tens of thousands of dollars and hundreds as a reminder. He adds that to his environment to remind him of that abundance. And then how will that impact the rest of your environment? Sorry for the typo there. How will it impact the rest of your environment? When you do that, what will that have? And then what you want to do is describe in detail your ideal environment so that you can live into it. You want it to be supportive. What would that look like, sound like, feel like? Then we get into the behaviors and states, right? This is the emotional fuel. That's what we do and how we do it. So now, again, we'll use the same again, just because the alcohol is just a really easy thing. And I've used this conversation around helping people in recovery. So this is just a dual process here, is I bring my own cranberry juice and seltzer to parties, right? This is just the behavior that someone does to be their authentic self. They're like, hey, I'm just going to bring it, so I don't have to worry about, no, I don't want, or I don't drink, or I don't anything. Just bring your own, right? People bring their own booze. You can bring your own juice, right? So these are some strategies through which you can take care of your behaviors and states. So again, then we want to look at what behaviors and states are supporting you. So when we think about our authentic self, you want to think about, how do you want to show up? How do you want to be remembered? Do you want to be remembered as someone who's confident, someone who's funny, someone who's creative, someone who's driven, someone who is calm and relaxed? Like, what behaviors and states would be supporting you, right? And then how would they support you? But then we want to look at what behaviors and states are not and how. So if you want to be, like, if you're thinking about you designing, you think about your ideal self, how you want to be remembered, how you want to be thought of, your legacy. Do you want to be remembered as someone who created an exciting environment, a funny environment, a peaceful environment, a driven environment, right? Well, then what behaviors and states aren't helping you? Are you showing up kind of maybe glass half empty? Right? So it reminds me of a friend of mine, comedian. He says, I don't look at the glass as half empty or half full. I just take the glass, I break it, and I cut people with it. So there's all sorts of strategies. And as a comedian, right, behaviors and states, he's always in a comedic state, in a creative state. And showing up as depressed or sad or angry would not support being your authentic self. And then last, what will happen if you don't change your behaviors and or states, like that emotional fuel? Like if you keep doing exactly what you're doing, will that be really who you truly are? Are these patterns? Are you willing to question? Right? Because you may authentically be a dark person, and maybe that's okay. Right? And you're so much more than one experience anyway. All of us are. So then we want to think about, what new states and behaviors must we add, right? And why must we add it? Like, why is that important? Well, I want to be remembered as funny, so I got to bring in some creativity or sharpness or courage to make that joke or share that position. And then what states or behaviors must we eliminate? Right? What have we got to eliminate? And why is that important? Why should we get rid of them? Well, because being depressed is not necessarily being angry. I'm sure there are friends that you and I have that maybe they spend a little more time in anger or depression, and we go, oh, man, they're so much more fun when they're like relaxed, or they, sometimes they're just so creative or confident, and they're so much more pleasant to be around as opposed to when they're dark. And we all have those friends who are one of each or both. So if we were doing homework, if you're going back and watching this, here's what we might suggest doing. Coming up with 3 to 5 resourceful states, strategies, or behaviors to support your hero's journey into your authentic self. Design it, because the authenticity is when you're in the zone, when you're flowing. But sometimes we need to condition ourselves. We need to work that muscle as we're designing it, because we may have some old patterns that we are wanting to remove. So we have to start over in design from the ground up. So this is the second level. Then it gets to capabilities, and that's the know-how, the maps, the strategies, the states, and that's a gray area between behaviors and capabilities. That's our direction. So again, we're using that alcohol. I stay in the now and don't project the negative scenarios into the future. So what could you do? And when you think in those terms of what are you capable of creating that presence, or creating whatever experience you are wanting to have in your life, what capabilities do you have access to now? Do you have a funny bone? Do you have that courage? Do you have, and by the way, we have all of them, right? It's just, do you have access to them? And then how are they supporting you? And then the question is, what capabilities do you need to access or develop? So again, that's why you are here as a boomer, to develop your capabilities, to expand your know-how, to really dig deep into what you're truly capable of, so that you can develop even more into your true, miraculous, majestic self. So then we're going to look at what new capabilities must you learn or potentially outsource. So now this is where we get into a little bit of that business conversation. So, I know, Mauro, you don't run every single aspect of your businesses. You have outsourced some and you've learned others. And some you say, you know what, I need to learn that, right? As an example, when we first started talking about Boomerang here, you did both. You learned quite a bit and you would share like, hey, this is what I've been learning, what I've figured out, and here's what I've outsourced. And then we have Bruce, and then we have some of the other opportunities who are being their authentic selves as they do this. So it's okay to outsource something, but this is where we're going to learn from as well. And then what will happen if you don't? What'll happen if you don't increase access to your capabilities or learn some new skills or outsource when necessary, right? It's okay to not do everything, just be you. Be you, boo. Let your freak flag fly. Here we go. All right. So, let me close that. Next is the values and beliefs. And these are the whys. This is the permission or motivators. So in this context, again, as I shared, we started with alcohol because there's multiple challenges and it's kind of an easy one to exemplify. Addiction is a disease of the attitudes. Drug and alcohol are not the problem. They have been the solution. So that is the belief system around it. So now this is somewhat dissociated. So now we're not getting into identity just yet, but this is a way to look at a filter through which you take on any experiences or challenges that gives you permission or motivation to take certain actions. So what are your beliefs about yourself? And this, again, goes into that authenticity. What do you believe about yourself? Who do you think you are? I don't mean it like, hey, who do you think you are? I mean, it's like, who do you think you are? Like, what are your beliefs about yourself? What are your beliefs about your goals, right? What is important to you? Is money important? Is adding value important? Is growth important? Is God important? Whatever. What are your goals in that? What about your family? What are your beliefs about your family? How does your relationship with your family, is it impacted by your beliefs and how you value them? What about your clients or prospects? And what if we were to take this a step further and start applying this here as a boomer? You're here because you want to grow your personal and professional life, and perhaps one of the professional opportunities you're looking to do is grow your boomerang community. Well, they're your clients and prospects, right? What do you believe about them? What do you believe about the market? Or what do you believe about sales? Do you have like a negative association around that? Is that real? Or is that just perceived because of other conversations or fears you've had? And that's why you want to be diving into all the trainings here with everybody, with Bruce, with Mara, with Walter, with Terry, with, I didn't know, who are some of the other, Emma Lou, is that one of, right? So we've got some great coaches in here, and I don't know, Maura, do you want to add some of the other coaches? I forgot. I don't want to leave anybody out.
Just Armida was left.
Okay, perfect. So I almost got them all. So like, these are the opportunities that you can do. What are your beliefs around taking these trainings? Right. And then what about your health and energy? What do you believe? Do you believe, is like being a boomer a side hustle? Right. Do you feel like, oh, I don't have the energy to do it at night or what have you? Well, then that you won't, if that's what you believe. If you believe you can or you believe you can't, either way, you are right. So we want to be very aware of how our beliefs are showing up to who we truly are. And then ultimately, I mentioned it before, your conversation around your connection to God, to a higher power, whatever that is for you, we need to be able to understand what that relationship is and own it. So when we look at this, then we want to say, what impact does each belief have on my progress in life? I'm presuming here that if you are watching this still, that you are committed to growing your life, every area of life, that you are committed to improving your relationships, you're committed to improving your finances, your health, and your connection to God and beyond, right? But what'll happen if you don't change? What'll happen if you don't update some of your blueprints, some of your beliefs around these experiences? Well, then we'll stay stuck. What new beliefs must you and I have, and why? Why is it important to change those beliefs? And if I were coaching you right now, I might suggest you come up with 2 new situation-specific beliefs to change. Maybe you have an opportunity right now to grow your boomerang business. Maybe you have an opportunity to improve your health. Maybe you've got an opportunity to improve your relationship with a spouse, with a loved one, with a family member, or maybe with God, with your higher power. Whatever it is, just think of like 2 new ones that you could update. Think about that you would want to modify and update, and then you continue to reach out to us and we'll get together and make sure that we support you in making those transformations. Last is, well, not last here, but in this structure, in the first 5 here, is identity, right? And that is the who. That's your sense of self. And that relationship with others. So when we use the recovery and alcohol conversation, we worked a lot around identity, because I would ask this. I would say, one of the things if you're not familiar with the 12-step program, is that they would, in their meetings, it would say, hi, my name is, Steve, and I'm an addict. And I said to them, I would ask our clients here, I would say, so just out of curiosity, now going back to the other levels, right? Asked about behaviors. I said, what do addicts do? And what do they believe? And they would say things like, well, addicts do drugs, they lie, they steal, they cheat, environment, they live in crack houses, they're homeless, right? They would say all of these really dark, horrible things. And then I said to them, I said, well, so imagine this. I'm using your model. Hi, I'm Doug. I lie, cheat, steal, use drugs. I think I'm a miserable person. I live in crack houses or a homeless. You want to hang out? And they're like, no. Well, so then why do you, like, I don't even want to hang out with me if I were to say that. So we looked at the identity and we said, okay, rather than identifying as an addict, let's look at this. I am a grateful, recovering addict. I don't even think you need to have addict in there, but this was to stay true to that philosophy. So what are the presuppositions now in this identity? Grateful and recovering. Now, addict isn't an identity, it's a condition. So just something to think about when we're looking at all of this. So how can we update our identities? Well, let's think about this. Who do you admire, right? What character traits do you admire in them and why? Think about it. Like if you were to say, okay, I'm going to design my authentic self. I'm going to dig deep. I've looked at my environment. I've looked at my capabilities. I've looked at what some of my beliefs are. I looked at like who I am, right? My behavior, all this. And I go, I want to update it all. Well, model. So you go, okay, who do I admire? What are some people that I admire? What are the character traits of them, right? And why? And then what we can do is, again, if I were coaching you, these are some things I might suggest, are to pick 3 resources that they hold, right? And pick them harmonically. And what does that mean? Well, let's say that some of the character traits you like, okay, I love this person because they are confident, they are driven, and they're courageous. Well, that's kind of not really holistic. It's not really harmony. It's all kind of one thing. So think about, it might be 3 different people. What do you like about person X? What do you like about person Y? What do you like about person Z? And then pick 3 that all work together. And then ask yourself, how are you already like that? Because here's the thing, whatever you pick, if there's a character trait of someone that you admire, the reason why you admire it is kind of like that statement, namaste, right? The light in me sees the light in you. If you see a character trait, if it's creativity, if it's authenticity, if it's humor, if it's strength, if it's humility, whatever it is, you notice it because there's already part of you that experiences that. So get real present to that. How are you already like that? And celebrate it, right? And ask, how does it serve you? Like, how is it serving you to have those character traits? And then how does it serve others? Right? We're thinking again, here we are, give to get. As boomers, we're here to continue to add value. So how does your authentic like presence, and say that 3 times fast, how does that add value to others? How does it serve? And then maybe just say, what do I need to add? Maybe I need to add a little bit, maybe a little bit of humor, maybe a little bit of compassion or curiosity or empathy could be added to enhance the experience. So then what we want to do is design those resources even more clearly. Review that trinity, if you remember the behavioral trinity, which is your physiology, focus, and language, and construct the identity around that, right? So if you think about those people you admire, you'll also notice there's certain things they do with the way they walk, the way they talk, what they focus on, the kind of language that they use. And then you could also play, like, who are you metaphorically as you step into this? Are you the phoenix rising? Are you the pit bull? Are you the lion? Are you a cheetah? Are you a zebra? Are you a unicorn? Whatever it is, start playing with it. How do you show up metaphorically, right? And then who do you need to become? Do you need to add more? And you could even craft it, come up with some cool name, right? So some of you may have noticed I didn't change it here, and maybe I'll do it right now on the Zoom call. I am updating, I am bringing in my middle name, Max. All right, Doug Max McGuirk. Why? Because we take things to the max. Max love, right? We are here to maximize. If you see the mindset maximizer up there, right? So who do I need to become? I needed to add maximization, 2 X's, because we go extra. We extra maximize, right? So we have fun with it, add creativity. But this is who I am becoming, adding that part which has been non-existent for whatever reason. It's like, okay, getting really clear as I get my story, my authentic self clear and out, and it's constantly growing anyway. That was the addition. And then our mission and purpose, right? So that's tied to something deeper in our being. That's what we know. So now we're getting into a little more of the esoteric. Now we're getting into the real root behind being a boomer, behind give to get, right? So interesting. This is still around the idea of alcohol and recovery, yet the mission and purpose is to make a worthwhile difference in people's lives or the world by being the best version of me. Here's what I know about you. If you are here, if you are watching this live or on a recording, that is very likely something you could buy into, to be the best version of yourself, to make a worthwhile difference. You wouldn't be here if you didn't want to add value to the planet. And there's nothing wrong with receiving benefits by doing so. So, what is your purpose or mission that is bigger than you? My purpose and mission is to positively impact and create paradigm shifts in human consciousness by any and all means, morally, ethically, and legally. Right? Now, what does that mean? Well, what impact will that have on me? Then I feel like I'm doing God's work. I'm here. If I'm in God's image, if I'm created in God's image, it's my duty to play big, to add as much value as humanly possible. What impact will it have on my family? Well, then I'm a leader. I'm leading by example. So our daughter, when she goes through the world, she plays a big game. She has a gigantic personality if you haven't met her yet. She loves adding value and loving people. She hugs strangers. One day, this is a true story, we were going to the gym. We were taking her to the kids club, and there were these 2 gigantic, muscle-bound Haitian dudes standing outside talking to each other. And she got out of the car. She saw them. She ran up to them and hugged them around their legs, like, because she was short and they were giant, and scared the crap out of them. And she was like, they're like, whoa, what is this? And she's like, oh, hi, I love these guys. And then she goes, Mommy, Daddy, can we bring them home so they can come play with me? Like, and it's crazy. Like, she just loves people. She adds so much life to a party, right? That's her impact. So it looks like hopefully we've had a positive impact. What impact will it have on society and beyond? So again, if you're here as a boomer, you know that this is designed to have a huge impact on society and beyond. And though we still do need to keep in check what negative impact will it have, right? So meaning 2 things. One, if you don't live your mission, what impact will that have? But also you want to look at, sometimes we have to be prepared that the bigger we play, that the more authentic we show up, it is possible there are some people that may not get you. And that's the fear behind being our authentic selves, is that we're going to miss out on our deepest need, which is love and connection. If I'm my authentic self, I may turn people off. I may scare people. I might intimidate people. I might piss them off. I may just be too weird. I know how I've always felt. I've always felt like a a rhombus peg full of round holes. Like I never quite fit in. Even when I'm in an environment that I fit in, I still feel like I don't fit in. Maybe you can relate. So what's really interesting about this, though, is we spend the first half of our lives, seemingly, trying to fit in. Then as we start to grow and we go, I got to grow my business or whatnot, we spend the next half of our life trying to stand out, to be unique. And then probably at the end of our days, we'll go, who cares? Doesn't matter anyway. But right now, we're in that position. But at that point, that's another level of authenticity, because then people don't care. Like, I guess hopefully you're getting what I'm saying. This isn't a marketing conversation just yet. But the truth is that when we're authentic self, we're not worried about what other people say. We're not even recognizing when they don't get it. Like we're just so free at being ourselves that we don't even notice when people don't get it, because we're not paying attention. We're just in the zone. And then lastly, spirit and legacy. So this is the who else. This goes beyond who we are. This is transcendence. This is when we connect our mission to our highest spiritual calling. Now, it's interesting, at this level, people rarely have words for it. It's kind of almost impossible to describe, this experience. So when we are looking at aligning that part, is we want to go, what will our legacy be as we leave our mark? How will we be remembered? How does this connect to our highest power and our higher power, right? And then how can we align our mission to the spiritual highest calling? So by now you've probably figured out how Boomerang and Give to Get also aligns to our highest spiritual calling. And how does that look? Well, let's see. We start out with the spirit. So here we are, we're agreeing that we're connected to something bigger, something even more, I don't know, it's hard to describe. It's something so big that words can't even describe what it is, because if you're still here and if you're still participating as a boomer, you know that there's something bigger calling you. Now, your purpose is to add that value, to bring opportunity to the world, to help transform it. Right? Now, how do we do it? Well, who are you? You're a boomer, right? I am a boomer. I give to get, right? Why? Because I believe that this is important. I believe that I can add this value. I believe that there are others who will benefit from this, and I'm going to take a stand for it, which then gives us the opportunity to access our capabilities, access what we already know, and learn, which is what the boomer is all about, is learning and growing through taking the different trainings, connecting with the different coaches, really aligning the direction with all of that. How do we do it? Well, by behaving that way, by participating in the trainings, by bringing other people to these trainings, to sharing the opportunities, and put ourselves in an environment where we are free to be us, free to share, free to be our authentic selves, to let our freak flags fly. Whew. So with that being said, thank you. That was a mouthful, but now it's your job, your turn to write your hero's or your warrior's journey. Now would be the time to step up and align all of that. And I hope this was a powerful and valuable training and conversation around being your authentic self. And Mauro, if you have anything to share, any questions, or Caesar, if you have any questions, I am at your disposal.
No questions from me, but I tell you, every time I listen, I learn something new from you. And absolutely, this is fantastic. Great content. There's so much I want to, I took down a whole bunch of notes, and I myself will write my epic hero story.
That's right. Hey, Caesar, I saw you opened up. How can I serve you?
No, I just wanted to say it was a very nice presentation. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, we let our freak flags fly here. I was as authentic. As I was thinking about how to present this and